could have had something to do with it, we don't know. So we can't say they were drunk. That's a wrong statement. We can't do that. We could say they might have been. The thing is, they disobeyed God. It was clearly disobedience, rebellion, sin to what he had said. And so he made an example of them. And you read verse 3, among those who approach me, I will show myself holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored. I'm God, and you're not. And don't act like you think you are, and you know all this stuff, right? Is he being arrogant? No.
In the NIV, it says, I will show myself holy, but in the original, it says, I must be regarded as holy.
Big difference. Jim and then Burley.
I was kind of waiting till we got here, but that's one of the things that I wanted to point out, this distinction for Moses. Because he's quoting God right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because it says, and Moses said to Aaron, it is what the Lord spoke to me, saying, by those who come near me. Well, we know that's what Moses did. He came near to God. And so, I think this is the clearest place where it says that Moses shall be treated as holy. And creates a distinction for Moses that's different than anyone else. You know?
And Moses definitely did honor him. So, all right. Yes, go ahead.
Because you said that they named Abner, whatever their name are.
About
The two Yehus.
Yeah. That they weren't to go into the tabernacle, but weren't they priests also?
They weren't to go into the Holy of Holies as the high priest.
Oh.
That's what he was mentioning. They were supposed to be ministering in they would have had their times to go into the holy place to tend lamps and put the incense and the bread, but they would never have gone to the Holy of
You don't
Holies.
ever go back behind that.
Jamie's made the comment, weren't we talking about the counterfeits and counterfeits in a sense? So is there some sort of a counterfeit there maybe?
Good point. Yes, Burley. Sorry, I didn't get back to you.
I just wanted to bring out the parallel that we have with them offering this strange fire and God consuming them immediately, with the New Testament passage where we see Ananias and Sapphira their lives being taken because of their hard attitude and because of they didn't do it in the way they said they were doing it. So there's I think there's a real parallel. They're not exactly the same thing, but I think there's a parallel.
I think so too. Yes, Consuelo.
My version says Aaron's sons of Aaron each took his censer. So it wasn't theirs, it was Aaron's. It says each took his censer, put a fire in it, made incense on it, unauthorized fire. So
I think that would be referring.
I think they each took their own.
Yeah, that would be referring to them.
I think they each took their own. Yeah. Well, they had censers.
Right, but they did it.
And they'd have had one. Abihu had one. They would have had one because they were the priesthood, and they would have made those. So I think they took their own and did their own thing. Yes, Dottie.
I'm not seeing where they went into the Holy of Holies. The incense
They did not. No.
was in front of the Holy. But
Right.
somebody said they went into the Holy of Holies.
No, they did not.
Aaron did.
No, we were making the distinction of why they wouldn't have ever done that.
Yeah, they would never have gone into the Holy of Holies. Never. We're not even sure they went into the holy place at all. This could have happened outside the tabernacle itself, because we don't know where they got the fire from. Did they get it from the? Yeah, because everybody saw it apparently.
I thought that's what you said whenever you were saying they were not supposed to go in there.
They're not supposed to go in there, but I didn't say they did. I said they're not supposed to.
The reason that that's coming out is because that was the only place this was supposed to happen.
Right.
Was in the Holy of Holies.
On the Day of Atonement was one day to take a fire and censer.
That's why this is wrong, is because the only place it was supposed to ever take place was in the Holy of Holies by the head
High priest.
High priest.
On Day of Atonement.
On Day of Atonement. None of those three things happened. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
So.
They did what they wanted when they wanted. They're like, the picture I've always gotten of this is, because they saw the fire come out and consume the offerings on the altar, right? And being kids young men, hey, cool, let's do that. You know? Ty and I know stuff about stuff like that, you know, being, hey man, that was cool. You want to do that? Come on, Ty, come on. We'll make fire come out.
Uh-oh, there goes the garage.
Yeah, right.
With the bonfire.
Yeah. Trust me, this will be cool.
Eyelashes.
Yeah, your eyelash on the bonfire. Yeah, exactly.
There also one of the important things I think here in 3 is when Moses is basically telling Aaron all of this stuff. He's just seen both his sons that were next in line to be high priest die, not less than horrific. And Moses is telling him not only that's what they get, but you better watch yourself, otherwise you're next.
It is a warning.
And so Aaron held his peace.
And so, this is a warning for us.
Yeah.
And we're going to see as we go further on through Leviticus, we get a lot more where things are kind of getting massaged and, you know, so we know this is how I want you to be. I mean, we're getting the big picture here. We're going to start to get all the details starting in chapter 11 when we get there.
That speaks to how arrogant we are in thinking that we can claim to represent him, yet do whatever we want to and not do what he said to. I mean, how
Amen.
arrogant are we to think that, you know, he did this to the priest, but he won't do the same thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Phil.
What, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
Everybody catch that?
Yeah, that's what you get, you got.
That's good. That's why I married her. She's smart. All right.
Phil,
Yes, sir.
your hot for talking about when the guy that tried to study the ark.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't work out too good for him.
That didn't work out too good.
And we know that was really very, very innocent.
Yeah.
It was very, very wrong.
But again,
The
it's,
touching wasn't.
yeah, I mean.
The touching was innocent.
It's not even about motivation so much.
Mm-mm, not there.
It's just, if you do the wrong thing, you will pay.
And what were they doing wrong when the guy touched the ark and he died? What was wrong?
They just had it in a wagon.
Yeah, they had it on a cart. God said, no, put poles in it and have the Levites carry it.
Yeah.
And so they put it on a cart, and I forget which tribe was dragging it along, but it wasn't the Levites. And then that happened, and then they got things right. Yes, Dottie and then Fred.
Something this week, why that was such a big deal, because the throne of God, you know how it says that he rides like a chariot? You know, that the throne of God is actually borne up by angels. And his presence, you know, this is a physical,
Nice and peaceful.
earthly manifestation of what it's like in heaven, you know?
That's true.
And so that's why you cannot change anything, you know, when they just tweak it just a little to do it their way. You can't do that because it's his holy presence.
Exactly. Yes, Fred.
Well, he had it at his house for quite a few years.
Yep.
And he probably was getting so used to it that he did not have awe for it.
It could very well be. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And he knew that he was not allowed to touch it. But he had been around him so much,
It was commonplace.
it became commonplace.
Instead of
Just
holy.
like another chair in the room.
Instead of
And
holy.
so
Instead of
he made the
holy,
mistake of
yeah.
treating it as common.
Exactly. Which, verse 10, you must distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean. You must teach the Israelites all the decrees Yahweh has given them through Moses. What a segue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which just interestingly enough, there in verse 11, and you must teach the Israelites, there's one of those little symbols that we like to see by itself.
Uh-oh.
You must teach the Israelites, Aleph Tav, all the decrees Yahweh has given them through Moses. So just for your information, if you want to put a note in there, imagine that. And while we're on that topic, because in chapter 9 there are a couple other ones.
Randy Kate took it.
Chapter 9, verse 5, when they took the things Moses commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, well, they took Aleph Tav, the things, And then in verse 15 of chapter 9, when Aaron brought the offering that was for the people, he brought the olive tav, offering that was for the people. Just for anybody in here that kind of keeps track of those things. And we're going to see one more of these in a really, really interesting place coming up in just a little bit. That was just blew me away that I saw it there, and still kind of trying to figure out why. But we'll get there in a little bit. So, okay. What else in chapter 10? Because I looked at the first little bit, and that's where I just kept going back and back and back and back and back to that first little bit, and really didn't have a lot get pulled out of the second half of it. Yes, Ty?
9:16.
9:16.
9:16, diligently sought is the middle of Torah.
Oh, and 10:16, right?
Yeah, 10:16.
Sorry.
10:16.
I knew that was around here somewhere, that middle. I was thinking about that in the shower this morning.
It's in between diligently and sought.
Yeah.
The-
10:16.
It's actually those two words, because there's an even amount of words in the Torah, so those two words are considered. And it says.
This is the Derosh Derash.
Derosh Derash, and it's inquiring, he inquired.
Oh, okay. Diligently sought, okay. Yeah, because I've got Moses searched carefully.
Inquiring, he inquired. So the middle two words, what that says is that, the heart of the Torah is to seek him, Derash, is to seek him.
Exactly. So we should have inquiring minds, because we want to know.
Yes.
And that's the center of the Torah, not the Old Testament or the
Correct.
Bible. It's the
Center of the Torah.
Torah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody know, is there like a jot or a tittle there?
No, not
No.
on this one.
No.
There's a job on,
So I've got my interlinear in my backpack. Brought that today for some reason.
10:42.
Hmm? Wait, yeah, I needed some ballast in the car on the way over, so, Okay.
The next chapter, there's a job to.
Okay.
All right, so before we leave chapter 10, Moses, this is back in verse 6. Moses said to Aaron and his remaining sons, "Do not let your hair become unkempt," which in the original says, "Do not uncover your heads." Not sure why they get unkempt hair and uncovered heads, but anyway. "Don't tear your clothes or you will die, and Yahweh will be angry with the whole community." So if they do something that God says don't do, he'll be angry with the whole community, not just them. Why would that be angry with everybody and not just Ithamar, for example? Because of the priests, they represent the whole community. When Aaron, he had to atone for himself before he could atone for everybody else, but he atoned for everybody else. I mean, they didn't all bring a bunch of sin offerings, and he did all this slaughter. He did a sin offering for the people because he represented them.
Well, if he screwed up, it was a screw up for the entire
For the entire community, yeah. Saw a couple of hands. Dottie and Shirley? Oh, go ahead, Shirley.
Well, in verse 19 here, I don't understand whenever Aaron was mad at them because they didn't go ahead and eat it. And Aaron tells Moshe, "Behold, this day have they offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord, and such things have befallen me." Talking about the fact that his other two sons had died.
I believe that's exactly what he's talking
And
about.
if I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been acceptable in the sight of the Lord?
And that's a verse that I struggled with too. And what I think, and this is just a personal opinion, when someone in your family dies, you're not whole, you're not complete. So the thought I kind of had is, well, if he had gone ahead and eaten the sin offering, which is some leftover pieces of the offering itself that they could eat, I don't know what words I'm looking for here.
Well, Moses
Go
told
ahead.
them not to have any outward signs of mourning, but they're still going to mourn. And a lot of people, when they're mourning, they don't have an appetite. The thought of eating is just
True.
repulsive. And so even though they couldn't outwardly mourn, they're still going to mourn. And God didn't tell them that they couldn't inwardly mourn, because he knows that that's just human and that's the way he made us. So I think that had to do with their mourning. They just,
He may have
who has
fasted.
an appetite?
What's that, Jay?
He fasted during that time, well, as part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What do you say?
He fasted in mourning, which would make sense. Yeah, but that's kind of a, it's like, well, geez, my son's just died. If I just carried on as normal, would God have been happy with that? And maybe that's kind of what the question he's asking Moses. You know, my son's just died, dude. You saw it. But yet they're told not to leave. They're told to stay there because they've been anointed. So they can't go and mourn, I guess, in their own tents. They got to stay right there where God is. Okay.
Moses is a dude now.
Sure. Why not? He was male, right?
Moses is a dude.
Moses is a dude. Dude. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought I'd hear that brought up in here.
I'm full of all
To the
kinds of
dude-
stuff.
to the dude, okay.
Okay, anything else in chapter 10? Because I wanted to jump into chapter 11 and open up a big old can of worms, probably. Maybe, but maybe not.
Most controversial part of the Bible, chapter 11.
Sure is. Why is that the most controversial part of the Bible?
People are stupid. I mean, because
It was Peter's fault. It was Peter's fault.
Get out, Peter.
I don't know.
We might talk about Peter, but we might not even get to Peter. We might talk about Yeshua a little bit in here. Wouldn't that be? Yeah, let's talk about
Wow, what a
him.
concept.
Man, all right. So chapter 11, clean and
I
unclean.
didn't really say that.
Can I start you out with something?
Yes, sir, go right ahead.
When it talks about touching a carcass and being unclean. Is that a sin?
You reading my notes?
Oh.
Jay asked the question when it talks about touching a carcass and becoming unclean, is that a sin? And we're going to get to that. All right, first of all, I think we ought to define clean and unclean, just so we have at least a little bit of a picture of what's going on. All right, clean, tahor, means pure. Comes from the root word that means to be bright or to be pure. So, adjective, verb, noun, different parts of speech. Unclean, tami,
Tattered.
which means, would you say tattered? Tattered.
Tattered, separated, segmented.
To be foul. We'll put separated.
It also
No
means
bueno.
common.
Common is also what that means. Now there's another word in here, in this chapter, abomination. Not the Obama nation in which we kind of live, but abomination. Ba-dum-bum. Nobody even heard that, I don't
I
think.
did.
Man.
I got it.
It's
Good
a
job, Phil.
tough room. Hey, get no respect. All right. Abomination is filth, dude, or an idolatrous object. Just a couple of little things, because we're going to see this word is going to show up someplace very interesting as well. Okay, so clean, pure, unclean, impure,
There you go.
foul, bad. An abomination is filth. Like this is like another step below unclean, at least the way it's used in here.
First one in the field.
This is idolatrous.
Idolatrous.
Sorry, I sort of did kind of write a little bit in English, but sometimes not so well. It's the board's fault. It flops and moves. You know, I have nothing to do with that. Okay. Now, as we listen to this, well, before we get into it, let's go over to Matthew chapter 15. We're going to look at a couple things first. And this is something that I was struggling with for, it's been several months, and particularly the last couple of weeks, trying to figure out how to reconcile the words of Yeshua and Leviticus chapter 11. All right, so Matthew chapter 15. Could I get someone to read loud and proud 1 through 20 of Matthew 15?
Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandments of God by your traditions? For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have you made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. Your hypocrisy well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching the doctrines and the commandments of men. And he called the multitude, and he said unto them, Hear and understand. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth the man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth the man. Then came his disciples and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? Sorry, that's funny. But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall he root up. Let them alone, they be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. And Jesus said, Are you also yet without understanding? Do you not understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murderers, adulterers, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat without unwashen hands defileth not a man.
And would someone else loud and proud read Mark 7, 1 through 23? Mark 7, 1 through 23. Same story.
The Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus and saw some of his disciples eating food with hands that were unclean, that is, unwashed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Yeshua, Why don't your disciples live according to the traditions of the elders instead of eating their food with unclean hands? He replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain, and their teachings are but rules taught by men. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to the traditions of men. And he said to them, You have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. For Moses said, Honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. But you say that if a man says to his father or mother, Whatever help you might otherwise have received from me is korban, a gift devoted to God, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or mother. Thus you nullify the word of God by your tradition that you have handed down. and you do many such things as this." Again Yeshua called the crowd to him and said, "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a man can make him unclean by going into him. Rather, it is what comes out of a man that makes him unclean." After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. "Are you so dull?" he asked. "Don't you see that nothing enters a man from the outside can make him unclean? For it doesn't go into his heart, but into his stomach, and then out of his body." He went on, "What comes out of a man is what makes him unclean. From within, out of men's hearts, come their evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside, and they make a man unclean."
Thank you. Okay, same story in both books, same message. What goes into a man doesn't make him unclean. What comes out of a man makes him unclean, because that comes from his heart, right? Okay, back over to Leviticus 11. Just wanted to read those two to set up what we're going to talk about here. Okay, so as we went through Leviticus 11, it's the list, what you can and can't eat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of what you can't eat. A lot of unclean, 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 which is good because we need all the instruction we can get and all the detail we can get, because we can screw up even the stuff that is pretty laid out here. Put fire in here.
You can say it, we're stupid, it's all right.
No, we're just misguided.
Okay.
We don't understand. We're children, whiny little babies sometimes. Okay, so, and the struggle that I've had, and that God finally woke me up to it, is Yeshua says in Matthew and in Mark, nothing that goes into a man makes him unclean. And I thought, well, Leviticus 11 has a whole bunch of unclean animals. And so the question came to my head, if you eat one of these animals, are you unclean? And so I ask you that question. If you eat pig, if you eat lobster, if you eat kite, hoopoe, hawks, are you unclean?
Yes,
Why?
because Yeshua said, out of the heart is what makes a man unclean. If you are arrogant enough to think that you don't have to obey God's command on what to eat, you are arrogant, you are already unclean.
And so ends our discussion on Leviticus chapter 11. Thank you, folks. It's been a great day. Okay. What I had to do was go back through this and through this and through this and through this and really read what it says. Just a second, Fred, I'll get to you. It says, well, first of all, what are unclean in Leviticus 11? People or animals?